Data released by Stats SA shows that the unemployment rate rose to 32.9%. That's 0.8 percentage points higher than the fourth quarter. And of course, to unpack this latest number for us, I'm joined by Lulu Krugel. She's the chief economist at PwC. Very good afternoon, Lulu. Thank you very much for joining us. So this unemployment number, it's not looking good at all. It's gone up to 32.9%. In the fourth quarter, it was 32.1%. And of course, no doubt, the other numbers, that is, the numbers that include workers who have given up on looking for work, those have increased as well. Just tell us what were the key sort of takeaways from the latest stats that you saw today.
Yeah, unfortunately, as you said, Nobu, the numbers showing that there's at least another 330,000 people that have moved into the ranks of the unemployed in South Africa. The total number of jobs have remained basically static around 16.7 million. It is expected that in the beginning of the year, you would see more people coming into the labour market, as you get matriculants that have finished their studies, also people from that have undergone tertiary education, etc. So you would typically expect about 500,000 people coming into the job market. So just to absorb them would mean that we have to create an additional 500,000 jobs every year at least. And the latest statistics show us that we have not been able to do that. There were a couple of sectors in particular that were really hard hit. Construction, finance, which doesn't include only banks, etc. It's also real estate. So everybody that's to do with finance in some other way. And then also the community and social services. Those were amongst the ones that made up the biggest proportion of that 330,000 in job losses.
So what was quite concerning to see as well is that even the informal sector lost about 100,000 jobs as well in the quarter. It shows that the economy all the way round, whether it's the informal or the formal sector, is just not doing well at all.
Yeah, I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that the South African economy is particularly dependent on consumers. And consumers are under a lot of pressure at the moment. We are seeing high interest rates, still high rates of inflation, petrol price increases, all of those playing a role. And we obviously see that in the numbers. However, what was interesting to me is if you look at the sectors where we have seen some job gains, sectors such as retail trade, that was one. Another one was manufacturing and also private households. So those, it's a bit of a strange signal for me because especially retail and wholesale trade, and if you look at households, that would typically be sectors that you would attach to the consumer and to the health of the consumer. So the fact that we've seen some moderate job growth in those sectors tells me that maybe things are starting to turn around or at least stabilize. So, yeah, it was interesting for me to just note that. But again, sectors that absorb large numbers of people in the South African economy, such as finance and construction in terms of job creation, those were under pressure.
Yeah. We know that unemployment is one of our greatest scourges in the country, along with poverty and inequality. But of course, in an election year, as we have now, we've had a lot of political parties coming out with promises to create millions of jobs when, our past sort of track record shows that that might be difficult to attain. We've got the DA, for example, saying that they would scrap the minimum wage. Would that really be a panacea to solving the problems of South Africa's unemployment?
The unemployment problem in South Africa is complex. It comes from a whole range of different areas. And as you said, over the last, maybe let's say a decade plus, we've lost about 10 percentage points in terms of jobs, or our unemployment rate's grown from the early 20s to over 30%. So Yes, there are a couple of things that we can do, obviously. But the biggest factor still for South Africa that would change the needle and move the needle the most is growth, economic growth. If you look at all the factors that impact employment, economic growth can still or explains about 80% of that. So the bottom line is still, if we go back in history and we look at times when the economy was growing well, and you know, we recorded growth of 4 and 5%, we created jobs as well. And that sustainable growth will send the message, if we can get to that, to companies and investors that, listen, it's a good sign for me, I should do this. So yes, there's a lot of small things that we can do, and obviously every little bit is probably, and we need to investigate those. And I'm not saying we should scrap minimum wages, or we shouldn't. It's not as simple as that. But the bottom line still remains, if we can get the economy to grow steadily at a stronger rate than we're currently seeing, that will make the difference.
Yeah. Lulu, well, so much more to ask you, but not enough time. But thank you very much for talking to us. Lulu Krugel, she's the Chief Economist at PwC.